Yes, lads, what an upper body session ticked off this morning. FLF is a sick place, you know, and this is a big reason why I'm over here now. It's the environment, the atmosphere, obviously the machines that are inside in there. You know, hopping on those machines today was absolutely unbelievable, and it did result in like an absolutely unreal session. Like at 4 weeks out now, this is where my training needs to be, and this is where my training needs to remain over the next couple of weeks to make sure that we do continue to bring that look that we are looking to bring. You know, training is what we love to do. Training is what builds the physique, you know, as much as the nutrition obviously and everything alongside that, the steps, the cardio dictates what way you look, because it does, you know, create the change there for your body composition. But it's the training that creates the demand for the change, and this is what training should continue to look like if your prep is managed properly, you know. And it mightn't even be a prep that you're doing, but a fat loss phase, you know. We can definitely go through the motions. I know it's something Keane, my coach, spoke about obviously in a recent video, but this is exactly what you need. You know, this is where training as much as possible, if the prep has been managed properly, should be at this point in time if you want to bring the very best look. Again, this is my first prep for the stage, so it's my first experience. You know, I haven't got that experience from before, obviously from the photo shoots and everything like that, but you know, this is my first proper time doing it. But we had an absolutely belter of a session. You know, with that novelty first session over here, obviously I wanted to like get onto a good few machines, but we had a really good upper session. The way my training is structured at the moment, and we're going to look into it again for the following week, is I do 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off, and it's been working extremely well. You know, I'm at a position right now where I'm not building any muscle. It's to maintain that muscle. You know, we're at a point where food is low, you know, and energy can be that little bit lower, you know, and you can get to a stage where you do start to just let training dip, you know, and you just start regressing on exercises. But there's absolutely no reason for me to be doing that right now. Obviously, the weight that I'm going to be lifting here now compared to what I lift at home is different, you know, but it's that strength, it's that drive, it's the aggression that you go into the gym with that's super important, you know. And that's exactly what we did today. We got in, we got after it, you know. I was hyped. I was in there and I was like, come on, you know, I want to get after it. And that's exactly where we need to be at this point for us to get the most out of it over the next couple of weeks and bring that look to stage, knowing, okay, he did train, you know, he did train right up into that show. Because that's the part that got us into this, you know, like, is training hard, doing it for the love of training. That's the biggest part, you know. Like, don't lose that enjoyment factor of training, and don't just look at your training as I have to go in here now and tick off this session, because you're just going to enjoy it less. You know what I mean? You're just going to enjoy it less. But I just wanted to overlay this here. You know, this is where all these other little variables can come into play. Like for me personally, over the last couple of weeks, obviously sleep being that massive one. Okay, sleep is going to be that big dictator in terms of energy levels throughout the day. You know, if you watch and are keeping up with the daily videos of this prep, you'll see how much my sleep has transformed, you know, the way the body's responded over the last number of weeks, and it's something I need to continue. You know, you see a lot of people who really struggle with sleep during prep, and that's not to say I won't struggle with sleep over the next couple of weeks as body fat does get lower. It's just a natural part of the process. But all these things that you prioritize, all these things that you put emphasis on, get managed a lot better, and you tend to get a lot better results from it. You know, again, I'm not going to be prepping for a very long time again. My plan is to do my first ever, you know, really long off season here now after this, after we reverse really successfully out of these shows. So I want to make the most of it. You know, I want to bring the very best look, because it's that's what we're trying to do. Obviously, you know, it's the process that we do it for, we love, but we're trying to bring the very best look for these dates, you know, and that's the things that we need to be taking into consideration here coming up over the next couple of weeks. You know, my food and meal timings, you know, just being on it with them across the board. In today's session, we did go in fed, and I was absolutely delighted I did, because we cardio first thing in the morning, you know, a nice chunk of steps boxed off. Yeah, the energy is absolutely fantastic. You know, it was still a nice early session, to be fair. You know, it wasn't late in the day, and I'm very grateful that I am able to do that a lot of the time, you know, dependent on what's going on a given day, but I am very grateful to be able to do that. But again, for you, you know, someone who might be, you know, finishing work in the evening time and it's just your routine where you do train in the evening, or you train in the afternoon, or you train late relative to what time you got up that day. Again, it's just something that's your routine. You need to build everything around that. You know, the training window does need to become a very, very important part of your day. As sad as that might sound, it needs to be a very, very important part of your day, and something that you need to look into, you know, alongside the nutrition, you know, proper peri-workout nutrition, you know, proper meal times across the day, so that you are fed enough, you know, if you are training later in the day from where you were earlier in the day, to give yourself enough energy to go into these sessions and be able to attack it. So just being smart with where your nutrition is at, where you're placing, you know, carbohydrates during the day, where you might be placing fats during the day, all these small little nitty gritty things now that you want to be taking in and having a look at. But all in all, a really good session. You would have seen me posing. Unfortunately, I started a few posing rounds. My camera hit the deck, hit the ground, and is now broken, which is not something that I want to be dealing with 4 weeks out. But that is what sets should be looking like, in my opinion, 4 weeks out. You're not in a place where you can be going in all the time and taking PBs, you know, and it's not a time for you to be getting super angry over not being able to get a PB, and it's even not a time for you to be getting angry over potentially dropping a rep or potentially having to bring the weight down a small little bit, especially in certain sessions. You know, that could be a push day, you know, maybe that could be a leg day. It's different for every single person, but it is a more mindset thing where you need to go in and you need to be like, right, I'm going to send it here, I'm going to give it everything, you know, and I'm going to maintain at minimum everything that I did in the last session, because that's what's going to maintain the physique that you've built. That's what's going to maintain the muscle that you've built, potentially in long bulks, long gainer phases that you might have done in the past, or even just from the muscle that you already had on your frame that you might not have built, but you just had it over the last while, and now you're in a prep, you're in a fat loss phase where we're not in a position to be building crazy amounts of muscle realistically. You know, at the start of the prep I was, to be able to build a little bit of muscle efficiently, you could say, but right now we're not. Okay, it's solely maintaining the muscle and losing the body fat to bring the very best look to the day. And with that, it's just a case of having your priorities in order, having, you know, and being that little bit more selfish in terms of, you know, probably timings across the board with going to sleep, meal timings potentially, you know, all these little things. Bodybuilding at the end of the day, physique development, it's you're the only one that can put the work in on your body. You can have the perfect plan, you can have the coach and the most amazing coach, which is what we all need, you know, for that accountability, for mindset wise, you know, for taking away stress. But it's only you that can actually put in the work. You know, it's only you that can go in and do the training. It's only you that can move the weight from A to B at the end of the day. So it is that little bit selfish, but that is what it's going to require. You know, that's the decision we've made to do this. And that's just my thoughts in terms of, you know, for me, where I'm at 30 days out as of today, instead of just showing you the training, you know, obviously showing you what the training looks like, getting a really good pump, obviously focusing on pumps here now as well also, and just being able to pose then after, you know, see what you look like after training sessions, because, you know, that's what the judges are going to be looking at, like how good does he look on stage. The judges don't care how much weight he lifted, the judges don't care how much food he ate, how much cardio, how many steps he had to do, how many sleepless nights you had. The judges care about who looks the very best on the day, you know, that kind of way. And it's all about bringing the very best look to the day while being able to enjoy it, you know, while being able to get through it without hating it, without hating the process. Because I'm loving absolutely every single day of this, you know, as hard as it might get, and as hard as it is starting to get, you know, over the last couple of days and next couple of weeks maybe. That's all part of it, and that's what we signed up for. That's what we knew we were getting ourselves into. So sometimes you just have to take a step back, sit down and think, right, this is where we're at. Potentially for somebody, you know, sometimes for myself on certain days I have to sit there and think, right, you know, okay, where's training been at the last couple of days, you know? And you need to flip that switch and go in there and know, right, you know, I'm going to switch it on here, and just have that window for yourself. When you get home to the couch later on in the evening, if you've got time, you know, a lot of the time we have a lot of cardio to do, we've work to do, we've responsibilities, because bodybuilding isn't our only responsibility realistically at the end of the day. Doing our training session, eating our meals, doing our steps and cardio is like added and extra onto what we have as a daily thing to do, you know, and daily stresses. But once your boxes are ticked for the day, that's when you have that chance to just like, right, I've given everything I can to the day. The training session, the switch needs to be flipped, and we need to turn it on, and we need to lock it in. That's, in my opinion, where training should be at, you know, at this point, as you get closer. Obviously, in terms of like volume, in terms of, you know, frequency and everything, you can look at that, you know, build that around your schedule. What am I able to recover from right now? You know, in terms of volume, I wouldn't be looking at doing any crazy low rep sets. You know, a lot of my sets now have been swapped over to a minimum of 10 reps, 12 rep sets. And the reason for that being is because I'm going to recover a bit quicker from doing that. I'm going to be able to maintain numbers from doing that a little bit. I'm not going to put myself in a position to get injured. I'm going to get better pumps. Also, I'm going to be burning more calories realistically, you know. And if I'm bringing that same level of aggression, I'm bringing that same level of drive to my sessions as I have been throughout, to a degree, okay, to a degree. It's obviously not the exact same as when I was 15 kilos heavier and I was eating, you know, over double the amount of food. But have a think about it like that. You need to be just smart with these small little things, because they're just the little things that are going to allow each day that we're taking it one day at a time to just get more out of each of those days. You know, that kind of way. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you want to know, if you want me to go into more detail on different things like this, you know I cover broad topics and talk about these things broadly, but it's just to give you some like food for thought on these things. I don't want to bore you. I just want to give you my thoughts, get stuff off my chest on here. That's exactly what this channel is for. And if you're enjoying the videos, if you're following along on the daily, I really, really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe, drop the video like. We're putting videos out on here every single day, documenting the lead up and the whole process of everything I'm doing to step on stage for my first bodybuilding shows this year. And as of today, I'm 30 days out. I'm 30 days out. You know, you can look at it as weeks. When you start looking at it as days, it's not that much time at all. It's only a handful of sessions, realistically, isn't it? So give what you can to your training. Don't overlook what needs to go into your training, and you'll thank yourself when you bring your very best look to the stage. You bring your very best look to the end of your diet, to your photo shoot day, whatever the case may be. And just do it for the love of why you're doing it. Do it for the love of training that you've always had, what got you into this. I'll see you tomorrow.